All right, let's get our Facebook groups in here before it's officially time to go. We got the spinning wheels going there. Still spinning. One. And, well.
That's a big Facebook group. We want that one.
There it goes. All right. Welcome in. It is Thursday morning, the 16th of November, and it's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell and joined by, as always, Scott Kennedy. Scott, how you doing? What's new? What's going on? Only 2 more weeks of regular college football season, and my heart's breaking. My favorite Iowa player had an injury and out for the year and done for his Iowa career. So
I know that sucks.
Bummer today, man.
Next time we'll see him will be pre-draft workouts and stuff. So hopefully he's doing better. But God, time's flying. You know, it's Thursday again already, y'all. Broncos for breakfast. That means it's football Thursday night. You got Colorado football on Friday night for those of you who partake, and then another weekend with your red hot Denver Broncos and another primetime game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we don't get the Kirk Cousins primetime effect, although probably a little bit overstated. But we get Josh Dobbs here. So we're going to start to get into the Vikings game as well and also talk about the topic that really was, I don't know, taking over Broncos country yesterday was Russ. Is Russ back? What is Russ doing? What is the level of Russ? Is Russ in the MVP conversation? You know, it's we'll see if all these things, we'll start to break down some of these numbers here and see what you guys think, see what Scott thinks. But let's say hello to some people in the chat here as we let you guys trickle in here. And make sure if you are joining us today, click a thumbs up on the way in and subscribe if you haven't already. Jeremy Sean comes in. Good to see you, Jeremy. Says, morning, boys. Russ is playing good football. He still holds it too long, but overall very good. I think people will expect a perfect quarterback from the trade. Obviously didn't watch him in Seattle. This is him. Yeah, I think that's a lot of good points here, Jeremy, and good morning to you. We also got Gatorade Gaming coming in saying, good morning, Nick and Scott. What's good, Broncos country? He also says, for me, what's so annoying about Russ is he gets the pressure tried to do too much and takes the sack, sometimes knocking us out of field goal range. Yeah, that's an issue with Russell Wilson. He does have a decent rate of pressures, Scott, that he takes on this as a quarterback, but Football Fantasy Pros has a lot of really good data metrics for fantasy purposes. And this season, Russell Wilson has the average for the highest time to pressure in the entire NFL at 2.7 seconds, tied with Justin Fields. He's third in time to throw, so that's different than time to pressure, time to throw. And he has the highest pressure to, I think he's at the second highest pressure to sack rate in the NFL of any quarterback.
Behind Desmond Ridder, probably.
I think Ridder is up there as well. I don't think he's number one, but no. So Wilson, he is taking pressures and inviting pressures, but he's not escaping the pressures. And he actually has more time before pressure even hits and still taking, I think, some of the highest rate of sacks so far this season, 30 sacks. And just, that's really an interesting statistic. And I saw it from, I think it was Tej, who does a bunch of good work on Twitter, that the Broncos have lost the most EPA this season from sacks. So not only are they a lot of sacks, but they're happening in bad moments, which is taking points off the board.
Yeah, I think if you look at the sack numbers, especially, you could say that there's some teams in there. You can blame some on that, but you're not in real good company when you talk about who the top 5 guys for sacks are, along with Russell Wilson. Sam Howell has been sacked 47 times with the Washington Commanders. Zach Wilson is in there. I don't really want to be in any category with when I am names next to Zach Wilson. Then Russell Wilson at 30. Daniel Jones had been sacked 30 times in just over 5 games. That's insanity. Bryce Young, rookie quarterback, been sacked 29 times in 8 games. That's another one that, rookie quarterback. And then Desmond Ridder in 8 games has been sacked 25 times. And then it moves down. Then it starts to normalize against some other guys. But the taking of the sacks, that the quarterbacks you're in there, it's not even just the teams, but the quarterbacks that you're in there with are guys that you don't necessarily want to be associated with.
And every sack has its own story. Is the wide receiver getting open? Is Russ deciding to eat it rather than force something? There are such a thing as good sacks, honestly, and not a Manscaped read there. But that's something that, you have to think about. But just, again, some more interesting data. 2 quarterbacks that are obviously some of the most talented and best in the NFL. Mahomes and Allen. I just wanted to look at the pressures for those guys and what they look like. So Mahomes and Allen have had 127 pressures this season when they've been in the pocket. Russell Wilson has 130. So 3 more pressures, but that's, I mean, you're essentially in the same category there with your pressures. But Mahomes has only been sacked 12 times, Allen 13, and Wilson 30. And even more so, Wilson outdoes them by a lot in the time to throw and the time to pressure. So is it the scheme? Is it wide receivers not getting open? Probably a lot of it is Russell Wilson, and that's something that's frustrating to watch.
And you go back to, though, the, eating a sack, taking a sack instead of throwing into coverage. Josh Allen also has 11 interceptions. Russell Wilson has 4. That's 7 more interceptions on 20 more sacks. Well, what's a sack worth versus an interception? And how many of those could have been picked off, if he doesn't take it? So, yes, there's room for improvement. Of course. Is he a flawless quarterback? No. Is he the best quarterback in the NFL? No. Is he playing really good football right now? Yes, he is. I believe he is, and we'll get into all those things for sure.
Yeah, let's say hello to some more people coming in here. David Youngkin saying Russ is playing good enough to manage the game, but not good enough to take us where we want to be. I mean, it's tough to say. Where do we want to be? Want to be a playoff contender? You might be able to, game manage your way to playoffs if the defense continues to play this level and you continue to have the field position because of your kickoff and punt returns that way. Scott, the Broncos in their 9 turnovers in a 2-game stretch is the most by any team since 1998. So that's something that, just based on the data there, unsustainable. It is probably not repeatable.
I'm also not playing, Buffalo's Bills defense at home and the Kansas City Chiefs in 3 out of my 4 games. But, as far as the defense goes, so again, managing the game is all you've needed really in these last 2 games because your defense is playing well. And that's okay. Play enough to win. I started this comment from Jeremy before we got started. Going into what am I asking Russ to do? In that Buffalo game, Jeremy says, when we absolutely had to have it, Russ came through time and time again. Again, it was almost like play conservative, stay in the game, stick to the game plan, pound them with Javonte Williams. Let Josh Allen, you used the phrase on Thursday last week, give them enough rope and they'll hang themselves. They did. Josh Allen did. That's the game plan. You want to talk about luck. Oh, the Broncos were lucky. The Broncos were lucky. They executed the game plan exactly as a couple of dummies like Nick and I laid out on Thursday and executed it. How is that luck? Oh, well, they didn't have 12 men on the field. 1, that's coaching. 2, how long was that field goal?
I don't even remember.
But it was after the interference. It was around the 25-yard line. It was inside 45 yards.
Yeah.
45 yards, I know there'd been some kicking questions, but a 45-yarder is 90% in the NFL. The Bills were lucky he didn't knock it through the first time. You want to talk about luck?
Yeah.
It's not, oh, you're lucky you had 12 guys on the field. No. You were lucky he didn't make it. And the game was over right there, and then it didn't matter you had 12 guys on the field. You want to talk about luck? That's lucky. So, lucky Lutz. Lutz did get lucky.
You got to make your own luck.
But exactly. I mean, we want to start playing numbers. We want to start playing percentages. What are the odds that an NFL kicker misses that kick? About 1 in 5 under those circumstances at best. I'll take my chances with 80% to win a game. Drake Wally coming in to quote Nick. Appreciate you, Drake. Hope you're doing well this morning. With the super chat, I still feel like Peyton has a training wheels on this offense, kind of like what we were just saying, the conservative nature. I feel like Russ is looking far better, but Peyton needs to unleash him a bit, in my opinion. I think you're going to need more from this offense, more from Russell Wilson to continue winning these games. They've gotten away with it. I'm not going to say gotten away with it. They've been able to lean on their defense. And doesn't that sound great to say, Broncos country? They've been able to lean on their defense against the Packers, against the Chiefs, against the Bills. There will be times when the defense isn't bringing their A game, and you're going to need the offense to step up. And I think we've seen when you need to, I think you can trust Russell Wilson to start throwing the ball down the field a little bit more.
You'd hope. So far, like we talked about in that Buffalo game, he only had 3 passes that traveled over 10 air yards beyond the line of scrimmage, which I know it's not a high volume passing offense, but that's still a pretty small rate. He's like, I think 19th in the NFL in passes of 10 plus air yards. He's 20th in the NFL in passes of 20 plus air yards. Now, some of that is due to trying to limit Mike McGlinchey in true drop pass sets as well. He's had some issues there. Some of that is the probably lack of healthy weaponry that you expected to have this season, but that's a concern for me as well. And again, talking about the sack numbers, Wilson's always taken sacks at a high level, but his rate of sack per dropback has jumped dramatically. During Russell's peak seasons from a statistical performance, I'd say probably like 2018 to 2021, where he was like really, really efficient. Talk about like 35 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, I think was the stat one of those years. His sack rate hovered around 7.5% per dropback. So out of 100, 7.5 of them would end in a sack. Now he's up close to 10%. And compared to where we're at in the only 3% difference, that's a significant rate change.
Yeah, you're
there
talking
for him.
400 pass attempts. That's
Yeah,
12
I mean,
sacks.
that's a crazy jump in your sack jump there. Obviously, again, not a Manscaped read, and that's something that concerns me with Russell Wilson just taking those sacks. Now, again, some of it is not terrible. You'd rather have that than the interceptions, of course, protecting the ball. And even this is just a baby step. Russell Wilson was sacked 4 times in that Buffalo game. Every single one of them, when he got sacked, he protected the hell out of that ball. I'll live with the sacks as long as we're not squirting out there, fumbling the football sometimes. Like, I don't want them, but like when you get sacked and then the ball squirts out, which we had, I think, 5 lost fumbles from Russell Wilson this season, then that concerns me. It's not a high number, but you can't have it if you're playing this style of football. So that's one thing that I will say is a positive here. Is Russell back? The sack rates are higher compared to what they were, even though they've always been high. That's a concern. And we'll get into some more data as we continue to go here because I have other tidbits of information.
Well, one of the things I want to go to on game days is Little Caesars Pizza. Broncos Country, we need you to make Little Caesars. They're the official pizza sponsor of the NFL, part of your game day. I've said a bunch of times, and I mean it, it's so easy for me to be able to, I'm still a big eater, even though I'm a vegetarian, and be able to call up and order a pizza just fills my stomach and gets me going with some good pizza. So order online during our pizza pregame, 1 hour before and 3 hours after NFL kickoffs, plus all day on Sunday, and get ready for some football and fun. Choose your favorite Little Caesars pizza or pick the toppings you crave. Either way, you win.
Yeah, my wife is a vegetarian and I prefer a supreme or a pepperoni or a sausage or anything. And, sometimes you go to pizza places, you got to have, can I have pepperoni and a half? And then, they got pepperoni on both. There's pepperoni in the sauce. Not at Little Caesars. I can get 2 pizzas, right? Why get 1? Split it. You can get 2 there and have leftovers. Who doesn't love cold pizza for breakfast in the morning? So everyone scores with a convenient delivery in our in-store pizza portal pickup. Grab you and your friends or your wife and enjoy a few slices during the game this week.
And you should. It's going to be it's a night game too.
Tonight's great. Tonight's Baltimore Bengals. I mean, that's a hell of a matchup. Talk about we're getting rolling right now. I know the
old black and blue division.
Yeah, I mean, other than the SEC playing, little children of the poor, right? No, with like Georgia playing Georgia State or whatever. You got a lot of good NFL and college games this week. So, Little Caesars, thank you very much. Thank you, Drake Wally, also for the super chat. We got Troy coming in.
The SEC.
Yeah.
The gods know. Is that you that is that felt like a glitch from StreamYard because we both spun out there. So hopefully we're going okay right now. But Troy comes in, he says, "Hey guys, do your eyes and the stats show an upward trend with Russell Wilson that might continue or a plateau we just have to scheme around? Have a great show."
I think that there is still meat on the bone for this offense, and we've seen it over the last couple weeks now. Again, does Sean Payton have training wheels on the offense to an extent? Yes. The Broncos pass rate over expected is, I think, one of the bottom 8 lowest in the NFL. So in situations where it would be a pass, the Broncos are choosing to run, not putting the ball in the quarterback's hands. It's a very similar stylistically to what we've seen Russell Wilson during his best years, where it's not a high volume pass attack. It's playing off of the run game. But the upward trend that I've seen, Scott, is that it does seem like Russell Wilson has a much better grasp on the offense overall. And this specifically comes in pre-snap. Over the last 2 weeks, it felt like before there was a little bit of like chaos and get to the line and there's only 5 seconds left. Now they're getting the plays in quicker. They're getting to the line sooner. And you're seeing pre-line checks and reads and pointing out the mic. Just a little bit more control of the offense and getting into better looks based on what the defense is showing you. So that's not exactly, creating more explosives or taking less sacks, but you can be more efficient from the game operation and offense operation standpoint. And that's something that the Broncos are going to damn well need versus the Vikings this week, given they're a team that blitzes a crap ton, but they're also a team that only sends 3 guys a lot, but they'll line up everybody on the line. So you got to be able to get to the line and get into a good check. So that is something that I think we'll continue to see improve. But there are areas as well that probably will plateau. And one thing that will plateau is, I mean, the Broncos, we talked about it on here, Scott, but they've had unbelievable field position in the last 2 weeks, thanks to kick returns, punt returns, and interceptions. And they still aren't scoring at a very good clip. And you mentioned the Bills defense being good, but since week 5, they were the 32nd ranked defense in the NFL in EPA per play, which is dead last. Denver didn't make them look like that terrible of a defense.
No, they
despite
looked
having the ball a
inspired.
lot.
They looked inspired. And again, I think, Nick, part of it is your game planning kind of one-dimensional, which we said was okay. It was run the ball. Okay. It's 2nd and 8. Guess what? I'm going to run it again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think where I think that Sean Payton may have gotten a little too conservative was after the turnovers. You know, like you pointed out, 0 first downs after 4 turnovers. 6 points on 4 turnovers is odd anyway. But to not even get a first down after that, that's unheard of, really. That's unheard of. To have those quick turnarounds, it's hard for the defense to step up when they're, not ready. Oh God, we're in. And then they went 3 and out every time with 2 field goals. That's impressive and concerning. But again, I still think some of it is you're one-dimensional. You're still facing a lot of people in your face, right? Right at the line of scrimmage. And until you start letting I'm not going to say like literally what let Russ cook meant, but you've got to open up the offense a little bit. You've got to get some more downfield shots. And with an 18-4 touchdown to interception, and some of those are basically glorified handoffs. They are.
When you only have 1 rushing touchdown, that's kind of
some of them are glorified handoffs. But you still have to execute. We talk about execution all the time. You still have to execute those plays. So, Troy, what I see is this offense can get better. I can see that you should be able to trust your quarterback to put the ball up in the air a little bit farther downfield as he is grasping, Nick. And who would have thought you might actually get better running on offense more, a new offense with a really good offensive coordinator and play caller, that you should improve as the season goes on. And that's what we're seeing. So, Troy, thank you for the super chat. I think you should have the trust in Russell Wilson and your offense and your offensive line to start pushing the ball downfield a little bit more, which will open up things and improve your offense.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It should, in theory, do that. Now, again, coming back to some of the data here that we have, this isn't just a Russell Wilson problem, and we talked about it on here a lot as well, Scott, but offense is way down across the league right now. Your points scored, first downs, red zone offense, EPA per pass, EPA per play overall are all around. The red zone is down a 15-year low, but the other stuff is down to a 25-year low. And it might even be lower than that, Scott. It's only at a 25-year low because we only have data for that dating back to, I believe, 1999. So defense is really high. This is the first time in the modern data era that actually you have the average EPA per pass is negative. So it actually favors the defense when you pass the ball than the offense. First time we've ever seen that. So it's not completely Wilson's fault, but a lot of that also is the explosive plays across the NFL are way down. I mean, looking back to when Russell was at his peak, some of the years like the 2018, 2019, 2020, he was first in the NFL in explosive passes and big time throws, a PFF stat. 8.8% of his throws, big time throws in 2018. 2019, he was 7.6. 2020, he was 7.6. Every single one of those years, he was first place in the NFL in those hunting, vertical shots, getting big plays. Now this season, down across the league, like I said, but his big time throw rate is 8th. The Broncos are 11th in explosive plays this season from the past game. And the number for the big time throws is 5.3%. So a massive drop. I mean, you're talking 3% there when you're talking about the total pass. You're not having those explosives anymore. Again, not totally Russell Wilson's fault because it is a league-wide trend, but his his drop from where he was to where he is now is a larger discrepancy than where we went from the average a couple years ago to now. So we're taking more sacks and we're hitting less explosive plays. Is Russell Wilson back? I don't think you can say yes, and it's not entirely his fault because of the way the NFL is at right now. But I don't know if we'll ever see what he was 2018, 2019, 2020 from an explosiveness, playmaking ability.
Well, spicy and explosiveness, big plays, just makes me think of Manscaped. So are you ready to spice up your Thanksgiving as we dive headfirst into mountains and mountains of mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce? Let's talk about the unsung hero of the holidays, the Manscaped Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. That's right. It's time to go cold turkey on your old razor and take care of your own self. With the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, visit Manscaped and use Huddle for 20% off and free shipping, and enjoy Thanksgiving in style with the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, Nick.
Yeah, don't let your poor grooming be the topic of the dinner conversation this year. With the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, you'll be the talk of the table. It's waterproof, so you can groom wet or dry. And let's face it, we all want to look our best before carving the bird. Plus, the LED spotlight ensures you don't miss a spot, even in low lighting situations. So make sure that you are checking out Manscaped for your own turkey legs, and Scott won't say it there.
Yeah, get 20% off and free shipping with the code HUDDLE at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at manscaped.com, and use Huddle. Be thankful this holiday season for the best gift of all from Manscaped. So, Nick, I want to dive back into the chat here a little bit and say hello to some folks that have been so generous with their time and resources. Michael Ranquillo says, good morning, Nick and Scott on Broncos for breakfast. Hello, Michael. Appreciate seeing you. Lawrence Rivera is coming in double time. He's finally got his Facebook fixed up, and he just dumped. He did a stars dump for us. He says, what up, guys? Give me a few seconds so I can get back on my real Facebook. Finally took me about 3 weeks and had to use all these stars. So appreciate you taking care of us like that, Lawrence, because he's back. But he says, I like how Vance is finally getting praise. I was starting to feel like a loner backing up his career. I think that Vance Joseph has been super calm, and I think that steadying influence has paid dividends for the Denver Broncos. It'd be hard to argue against that right now.
Yeah. The players seem to really like him. He's a bit in his bag. The Broncos are still having some issues in run defense and their pressure rate overall. But again, I think he's maximizing the talent. I do want to see what it looks like when the Broncos aren't playing with an early lead and taking the ball away at the rate they are, because again, the most turnovers in a 2-game stretch since 1998. We're dating back to the home run chase with Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa there and John Elway winning the Super Bowl. That's a long ass time ago. So, again, not super repeatable, but what does it look like? It's definitely better than it has been, and this looks like a defense that should settle in probably middle of the pack if you take out that unbelievably bad outlier of a game that was Miami.
Yeah, I mean, and it goes back to game 1 against the Chiefs. The Packers game was solid. Mm-hmm. The Packers offense is middle of the pack. Kansas City's definitely is not middle of the pack. It's still top 10, even though they haven't quite hit their stride. So you didn't get, when the Broncos started turning it around on defense, you weren't getting all of those turnovers. You were still turning the ball over at a pretty good rate. But Lawrence, good on you for sticking by here, sticking by Vance. What's interesting, Nick, is the conversation starts turning, okay, do we think we want Vance Joseph back next year? Well, at this rate, obviously you do. However, if he keeps coaching his unit in this way, the man's going to get some head coaching interviews next year.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I mean, because he's already a failed head coach, I think that you might not see him actually get the jump, but I do think you'll see some interviews. Mm-hmm. I also think that what we've seen from the defensive turnaround and what the secondary is doing, maximizing, Jaquan McMillan, Fabian Moreau, I think this might be the end of the line for Christian Parker in Denver. I would be surprised if he is not taken somewhere to be a defensive coordinator next season. I mean, we've been talking about him for 2.5 years now, Scott, about there's just so much hype surrounding him.
How long has he been in Denver?
I believe he's been there since Fangio.
So you would get compensation for losing him to a coordinator position.
Is that true? I thought
if you just have a coordinator, it seems like if he's elevated to a coordinator position or higher, you should be able to get compensation for that. That's what makes sense to me. But who says things make sense.
I think it's only if they go to a head coach spot. I don't think you get it from a positional coach to a coordinator.
Should be anywhere up the line, man.
Yeah. I would be okay putting a stopper on the below coordinator, right? If you go
Yeah,
from
but if
quality
you're getting
control to
hired, if you're taking my coach, if you're hiring away my coach to a coordinator spot, I should be compensated for that.
yeah,
I think that if he's getting a promotion, I should be compensated for that. Coach Chris compensating us with a big
hell yeah.
orange super chat. He says, "Good morning, fellas. I have a sneaky feeling that if we win more, the wide receivers will get open more, put more effort in, and hopefully Mims will play a bigger role." Funny how winning can do things such as motivating the team, keeping people healthy, all those kind of things. People stay a little healthier when there's competition out there and there's something to play for. My hamstring's feeling a little better, coach. I want to come back now when someone's out there. So yes, winning is a cure-all for what ails you, and the Broncos have needed this, and having that bye, it kind of hurts. Like, you're coming off the win, but that bye came at a perfect spot. It really did. Right for timing wise, for health, middle of the season, coming off 2 wins in a row where the team's feeling absolutely wonderful. You want to continue that momentum, but you know what? Getting another solid week of practice in with buy-in and resting your bodies and coming out for the second half of the season and having everybody believe it was a perfect timing. And then to go out there and beat Buffalo. Yes, this 4-5 team is a legitimate playoff contender. Absolutely.
Yeah, they certainly are. They are getting hot. I mean, if they can keep turning the ball over the way they are and flipping the field with the AFC Special Teams Player of the Week and Marvin Mims, you can do some things. I mean, it really is. This feels similar to, again, sorry to make it about my Hawkeyes, but like the defense taking the ball away at an insane rate. This isn't sustainable. Well, we'll see. The special teams, other than the kicking game, the crazy returns and whatnot, that's very much Iowa. And this very much quarterbacks playing in a box. Don't mess up. We're going to run the ball, run, pass, punt, and we're okay punting kind of stuff. That's feels very much like a Kirk Ferentz Iowa Hawkeye managing the game. And so far it's working. Shout out to the coaches. Shout out to the players. I mean, you have to execute and protect the ball at such a high level to operate with the margins so small in that style. And 3 games in a row, the Broncos have done it. So we'll see if it can continue here. Addison Rychek coming in, $4.99 with a super sticker. Good to see you, Addie. Hope you're doing well. Appreciate you. And hope you're having a very good Thursday.
Yes. Thank you very much for the support. We appreciate you taking the time to think of us. And a week before Thanksgiving, happy holidays to you and yours. Mr. Roush, our Mustang guy, he comes in and says, "Can a 2 tight end set help with sacks, disguising protection and routes? Feel it's hard to find tight ends who are good at both. A poor man's Kittle, at least." Nick, I'll let you take a shot at this one first.
Well, first to kind of, lead this astray real quick about the tight ends. This upcoming game against the Vikings, other Iowa Hawkeye tight end, probably the other best one in the NFL, although Sam Laporta has been great too, but TJ Hawkinson has been on a freaking roll since Josh Dobbs has been in. He's playing with injured ribs. Doesn't matter. He had like 10 catches, 130 yards, and a touchdown last week. I am pretty concerned about what TJ Hawkinson might do this week against the Denver Broncos. He is playing great, and him and Josh Dobbs, they worked together in Tennessee in the offseason, so they already had a connection coming in, and Dobbs is going to him early and often. So even if Justin Jefferson doesn't play, look out for TJ Hawkinson. He's playing the best football of his career right now. As far as can the 2 tight end sets help with the sacks, this is going to seem a little counterintuitive, but with where the NFL is at right now, with what they are doing in disguising pressures, it is so much easier to hide who is coming and who is going or dropping when you play these condensed formations on offense. So if you're spread out, it's going to be pretty damn hard to line up 6-7 guys near the line of scrimmage because you have guys in space that wouldn't be covered then. But if you have these condensed sets where you have multiple tight ends, fullback, whatever back there, the linebacker coming up, the safety right up against that guy, well, he might just be in man coverage. He might be in his zone or he's coming. So actually, I think it's actually harder, especially from a pre-snap perspective, if you play these really tight condensed sets because you don't have those pre-snap tells that you would otherwise. Now, if you have great blockers and you can just, lean back and run effectively in that, which the Broncos have been one of the top, I think, 5 to 8 teams in EPA per play in 12 personnel or 21 with the run. That's either 2 tight ends or a tight end and a fullback. They've been actually pretty effective in that. But from a pass protection perspective, I actually believe it makes it harder for teams to execute pass protection in the era of the high simulated pressure that we're seeing right now.
Fake blitzes.
Yes.
Mr. Roush, I agree with Nick, and I'm going to add something because I didn't even consider. This is why I'm terrible at crossword puzzles. Once I get an answer in my head, it locks in, and I have trouble coming off of that answer. What's a 4-letter word for, whatever? And I've come up with one, and that's not it. I'm like, well, I'm done.
That's it.
My answer for this, Mr. Roush, was you can have max protection, but it puts less guys in the route. And I think that actually can be a detriment to – you see more coverage sacks. Like, he's got all day to throw. Why isn't he throwing the ball? Because there's only 2 men in the route, and they're covered. And now, because you've got max protect around, you got nowhere to go either. When you've got 7 guys blocking 2 in a route and, 1 guy next to you is a personal protector like a running back, that's a max protect. So I think what Mr. Roush is saying, though, also is having the versatility of a couple tight ends in order to make them think run pass. The problem is you don't have run pass tight ends right now. You've got run tight ends right now. So they're not a threat to go out and be in the route. So if you've got 2 tight ends, you're typically thinking max protect. It condenses the area you have to throw. It limits your escape routes and it limits your downfield options as opposed to spreading them out and saying, okay, here comes 6 guys. I got a hot route. Who's it going to be? And that's where Jerry Jeudy should flat out cook. He really should. This is where the Broncos have to do a better job of getting Jeudy the ball on hot routes, because if you beat a blitz and I can get in behind you and you get him in the open field, he's pretty special with the ball in his hands in the open field. That, to me, is how you start getting more explosive plays, not condensing. You want to go 2 tight ends when you're ready to start running it down their freaking throats. And then maybe you can pull a play action off of there. But I don't think as a rule it will help with avoiding the sacks. I think it will actually limit your offense more if you're 2 tight end tight like that.
Yeah. So it's complicated, of course, but it's kind of where we're at right now.
And this goes into the next question for me on this one, which your next Minnesota comes in. Who are you? You got the Bill Goldberg. Who's next? That's where it comes from. You're next. This is a regular. It has to be. So appreciate you coming in, changing your screen name. Is it concerning to you when Russell Wilson way underthrows Jerry Jeudy when all he had to do was throw in front of him, and that would have been a touchdown because he had that cornerback beat by 5 yards? Nick, doesn't concern me because that's a back foot throw. I'm running backwards and just putting the ball up somewhere. You would much, 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 much rather underthrow that pass than overthrow it. So give your guy a chance, and he has no chance if you overthrow it. And I'm not saying he could have even overthrew it just because he's got 8 guys running straight at him in a jailbreak blitz, which was just dumb. That was a dumb play call.
Unbelievable, especially after you already got them out of field goal range.
In back-to-back. That was dumb.
Yeah, and that taking the sack on the first one drove me nuts. That's another thing. It's like you can't have that one if you're not hitting the explosive.
Coming, though, real quick, if you're kind of going hurry up, it got to him so fast.
Yeah.
Where can you get rid of the ball where it's not going to be put in danger, where it's not going to be batted up in the air, where it's not going to be an intentional grounding? Duck and cover, man. I mean, I get it. Once the snap was made, that was probably the best thing he could have done. The concern that you have, I know, is why aren't you getting out of that play quicker? Why aren't you having more options as soon as the ball is snapped? Your pre-snap read is where that failed.
Yeah, and that one, exactly. And that one also, it's like, okay, we can live with a lot of things here, but there are 2 that we cannot have: a turnover and a sack.
So put him in a shotgun.
Yes, I don't know. Just frustrating because
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. But after the snap was made, a 3-yard sack, where he ducks and covers, may have been the best possible thing he could have done.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's just, God, it's frustrating to have that because that's, you just cannot have it. Got lucky that they called it again. Honestly, when I talk about luck, there's luck in every single game, no matter what. So I don't mean that Denver didn't win, but like the fact they called that 0 cover, 0 all out blitz again, crazy. Yeah, it would have been very tough for. I just wanted to answer that real quick. He was getting hit as he threw it off his back foot, and he tossed it up and gave his guy a chance, and it worked out. That's one that that's one of the things that's made CJ Stroud unbelievable, is that he's been launching the ball off his back foot in like condensed spaces. We're going to see it here in a few weeks. So maybe you could have had a slightly better throw there. But for the situation, he gave his guy a chance. It was the 4th down, all out, had to get it. So I'm not going to get too upset about that one. That was a more good than bad play from Wilson on the 4th
We've
down.
consulted our Broncos for Breakfast legal counsel, and the DWI guys, Ethan, over has helped us out here and has the rule for us on compensation. And you were right. It was just head coach or general manager. Clubs that develop a diverse employee who is hired in the position of primary executive primary executive could be more than general manager, or head coach, will receive a draft choice compensation in the form of comp picks in the 3rd round for the next 2 drafts. I think that needs to be expanded personally. If I lose a guy to an employee, and honestly, the guy's under contract. I don't care what color skin he is for this rule. If he's my guy and you hire him away from me for a promotion, I should get a comp pick. I don't and tier it. Okay, so he went from Mike McDaniel's passing coordinator to quarterback's coach under Kyle Shanahan. Okay, I'll take a 7th for that. Thanks. This was my guy. I found him and developed him, and you poached him. That helps protect. We want to talk about parity and forced parity. That helps protect the clubs who are developing coaches as well as players as well. So appreciate you, Ethan. As always, thank you for coming in. Gary Palmer, he's coming in too. He says, good morning, Nick and Scott. And to all of y'all, Gary, I hope you're doing well today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gary. We appreciate you coming in. Always good to chat. Spot killing it today. So final thing here again, Scott, just kind of putting a bow on this before we move ahead to the Minnesota Vikings. The Broncos, I think, are doing a good job of managing Russell Wilson right now, but is he, playing Pro Bowl level, MVP level right now? And I know that a lot of the, let's just call it basic stats for Russell Wilson have been pretty good this season. The completion percentage, tweet from James Palmer here, completion percentage is 10th in the NFL. Touchdown to interception ratio is 2nd. The passer rating is 4th. Game-winning drives is 2nd. 4th quarter comebacks, 3rd. All very good stuff overall. The big issue is that a lot of the advanced stats, the QBR, the EPA per play, et cetera, they're all hovering about 15 for Wilson this season. Now, some of that is the loss because of sacks. Some of that is deflated a tad because the Broncos are passing in the red zone rather than running it in, which bumps up a lot of that stuff. But is Wilson back? I would say no, because of the main thing is a lot of his value was the explosive plays. And I just don't see that coming back. Again, not entirely his fault. It's the league right now. But the Wilson being back could never be back because the NFL has changed in a way that is going to make it harder. I've thought about an example the other day, Scott. Imagine baseball, something happened in baseball where all of a sudden teams were just cranking 2-seam fastballs, just destroying something visual, or something happened where teams are just ripping the ball off a 2-seam fastball. Well, you have this pitcher coming in whose main pitch that gave him the most value, that made him the best pitcher that he was the 2-seam fastball. Well, now that teams are hitting that well, it's still a good 2-seamer, but it's not as effective as it once was. That's kind of like where we're at with Russell Wilson with the explosive plays and the deep ball. It's just they're not as effective.
The difference with this one, though, with this analogy is we assume every pitcher has a 2-seam fastball, because across the board, the explosive plays are down for everybody. So that comes down. But I get what you're saying on this one. I do get it. Again, I think some of the questions around Russell Wilson are the negative biases we have based on how poor last year was and the compensation it took to get him. There will be some people who are going to be pissed off for the rest of their lives because of the 2 players that went north to Seattle and the 4 or 5 draft picks that went north to Seattle. That is going to skew their impression of how Russell Wilson is playing. And then the giant contract is going to skew how Russell Wilson is playing. And then the confirmation that it was an awful deal when he played awfully last year. If this was last year and you got Russell Wilson and he's putting up this numbers in his first year as a Denver Bronco, everybody's talking about it was a good deal. This was a good deal for the Denver Broncos. It was expensive, yes, but this was the right move. Look at how he's playing. He's 18-4 in touchdown interceptions ratio. Let's see how this season finishes out. How about a nice 6-2 run to finish the season? And you're talking 10-7, a big turnaround from a 4 or 5 win team the year before. This is the Russell Wilson they tried to go get. This is why they got him. Not necessarily. is he going to be the one-man wrecking crew that he was capable of being 7-8 years ago? But this is why the Denver Broncos went and got Russell Wilson. That is the answer for me. That's the answer for me. Is he back? Back to what? Is he, again, I don't think he's ever going to be an MVP type guy, but is he back to the guy you were hoping to get when you traded for him? It's pretty damn close. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's definitely better than it was. I think that just because of where the game is at right now defensively and him being an aging player and his, let's just call it out, inefficiencies in the quick game, it's something that, with his age, with his regression, with where the defense is at, this is an inevitable sign of the times and just where the game is. It's unfortunate, but it's just where we're at with the analytics and what defenses are doing. The one final point I wanted to make, Scott, I just remembered this as well. Okay, Russell Wilson's not hitting this explosive plays at the same rate as he was, especially even against the backtrack that we've seen here recently. Well, it's because he's being coached to protect the ball more. He's not putting the ball in harm's way more. So that's why you have less explosives because the turnovers are down. Not so fast, my friends, in the words of Lee Corso. His turnover rates, despite the explosives being down, are about equal to what we've seen historically from Russell Wilson in his best season. So while, the big time throws 5.3% compared to 6 to 8.8 at his prime, this season his turnover worthy plays are at 2.6%. 2021 he was 2.5, 2022 he was 2.5, 2019 1.5, 2018 2.8, 2017 3.6. That was a high year, but he had 6.0 big time throws. I mean, the turnover stuff actually is holding really steady for Russell Wilson compared to his good seasons, despite the explosives dropping precipitously over his top seasons in the NFL. Again, some of it's the Vic Fangio cover 2 stuff there, but it's not because the Broncos are being specifically conservative to the point where it's ball protection. The ball protection is the same as it has been, while the explosives have dropped as well. So did think that was an important, at least, caveat, because I've seen the conversation, well, it's just because they're managing the game more. He's still putting the ball equally in.
Miss every shot you don't take.
Yeah.
What's the rate of him throwing the ball down the field compared to what it was? It's plummeted. Is that because he doesn't want to throw the ball down the field? Is that because he doesn't have the arm to throw down the field? No, I don't think so. I think he still has plenty of arm. I think it's because he's playing within the confines of the offense and he's doing what he's being asked to do. Mm-hmm. Those are good things as long as the Broncos are winning.
Yeah.
So again, I don't think you can say the explosive plays are gone. I didn't just take the two-seam fastball away from this guy. We're just not throwing it right now. So I think it's still there. And again, we talk about opening up the running game, opening up the passing game, and again, just being each of them feeding off of each other. The more balanced I am, the less pressures I'm going to have, the better I'm going to run the ball, the better I'm going to throw the ball. Right now, you are so run heavy, short passing game heavy that it's tough. It's a slog. But I think Russell Wilson has shown enough and a command of this offense that you will trust him to start opening up and trust your offensive line, because that's the unit too that matters, to start opening up and moving the ball downfield, which should loosen things up underneath and should lead to more plays of 20-plus yards. We will see, though.
We will see. Yep, and we've seen a little bit better, like we talked about earlier. The command of the offense has improved, and I hopefully will see that again against the Minnesota Vikings, as we talked about. But for me, I am at a crossroads here, Scott, and I'm wondering if the Broncos, just based on the data I've reviewed, and I'm sure Peyton's getting something similar, if not even more specific when he calls upon it. But I think you need to either have two things coming forward for the Broncos offense to take a step forward, especially when the inevitable bump or lack of a bump from the turnovers coming forward. Again, the most turnovers in 2 games since 1998. I think that the Broncos either need to really emphasize protecting the ball and not getting into those sack situations unless you absolutely have to, down 3rd and long, going to be a punt anyway, or you need to start to see the explosives tick up. Right now, the ratio for the EPA lost from the sacks compared to the EPA gain from the explosive plays and trying to extend plays is not beneficial to an extent. Now, there are certain game situations where you have to unleash a little bit, and we saw that in the 4th quarter with Russell Wilson. When you had to do that, you can. But I think that you got to protect stay on time a little bit better, because right now the sacks are, right now you're not explosive enough. to get first downs when it is a 2nd and 15 or a 2nd and 16. You just can't operate that way. So we're coming to a crossroads here. I think offensively, either you accept the sacks and you have to push the ball more, or you have to lean fully into we are going to play run, pass, punt, and everything we possibly can to not have be behind the sticks. Because once you're behind the sticks, punt team needs to start getting ready. It gets ugly then.
Yep. We'll see. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
It's nice to be having these conversations. Yeah. It really is. Coming off a 3-game. Okay, how can we improve now that we are improving? Is a lot more fun than, yes, guys, this is what it's going to take to not finish with the number 1 overall pick. So good conversations to have. You're next, Minnesota. That's Bill Goldberg in there. If you don't know the reference, who's next? I think Russell Wilson can take another leap forward next year, like Aaron Rodgers did with Matt LaFleur, or Matt Ryan did with Mike Shanahan. Not Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan as offensive coordinator in his 2nd season in 2016. My question on that is, one, I think he is taking a pretty good leap forward. If we double his numbers right now and he comes up 36-8 in touchdown to interception ratio, you would have snatched my hand off if I offered that to you over the offseason. So, and after that, I don't know. I don't think that Russell Wilson is the quarterback that Aaron Rodgers was. I just, apologies to Russell Wilson fans. For me, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best to ever play this game. He's in a tier with the greats. I could be wrong, but Aaron Rodgers you may disagree, Aaron Rodgers had 2 MVPs before Matt LaFleur got to Green Bay. And with the 2016 Atlanta Falcons, I just don't think you've got the offensive firepower that team had. And again, a lot of that stuff was done out of the pocket. Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, you can put him in cement boots and he's going to beat you. Matt Ryan played in cement boots and he could beat you. And you look at the players that they had. They had the Falcons had a 2-headed running back. That's about where it's about equal with Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman. But the receiving options, Julio Jones, you don't have anybody out there like Julio Jones. I guess he's the main difference, because after that, I thought there were some more guys in there that I was expecting, honestly. But Mohamed Sanu, Matt Ryan made him a ton of freaking money. I tell you that. Taylor Gabriel was okay. Devontae Freeman, Tevin Coleman, Austin Hooper was a really good option. I just don't think that. I just don't see it, honestly, that he would become an MVP type of performer, because either one, he's not capable of doing that from the pocket, or two, I just don't know that he's got the weapons around him.
Mm-hmm.
Give him a Julio Jones and we'll talk.
And that's one reason too for talking about this offseason.
And
should the Broncos, should the Broncos go for a wide receiver? If you like one there, you're still keeping Russell Wilson next season, which I think it's trending that way, but I'm not ready to say that definitively, because just think about where we were 3 weeks ago with talking about this Broncos team. Things could change drastically again in 3 weeks when we have 8 to go. So we'll see how it plays out. But if the Broncos do keep Wilson, I think wide receiver is definitely on the table. Great wide receiver class. Scott, you pulled up the 1996 draft class, maybe the best since then. That wasn't a hell of a class. You're good call on that one.
Let me see. Because when you said that this could be one of the best draft classes,
one of
in years, I'm like, okay, well, that's a bold statement. Let me check. And I came up and I went through it and I sorted by yards to figure it out. And I came up with 2001. At first, I thought it was going to be the 2011 class with AJ Green and Julio Jones, but a lot of those guys didn't live up to the billing. But the 2001 class was Steve Smith, Reggie Wayne, Chad Johnson, Santana Moss. Chris Chambers had an underrated career with over 7,500 yards, and then went down to, and then I got down to 1996.
That was
sorted by yards and went, and especially this is kind of a different era too. Yeah, you got 2 Hall of Famers there in Terrell Owens and Marvin Harrison. Machine Muhammad had almost 12,000 yards of offense. You had Keyshawn Johnson in that class. Eric Moulds was a beast. Amani Toomer was a beast. Terry Glenn was awesome. Joe Horn was really, really good. Eddie Kennison, completely underrated. Bobby Ingram,
don't say that name around Broncos country. There's a little bad blood for Eddie Kennison. But anyway,
apologies. But he had 8,400 yards receiving, and then Bobby Ingram. So that is the best wide receiver class of recent memory for me. 1996.
Yep.
That's not
But
so recent anymore, actually. It's
no, it's
almost
not.
30 years.
I was very young at that point. But yeah, the big thing for me with the this
You're
Broncos team
still
and
very young,
wide receiver
punk.
is certainly possible if they want to maximize it. Also, you have a lot of decisions to make. I mean, outside of Marvin Mims, which wide receiver are we for sure going to have here next season? I don't know. I mean, Jerry, you're gonna have to make some financial decisions here. Jerry Jeudy can save 12 million. Cortland's got a big cap hit. So the wide receiver, if you are not tearing down completely, has to be on the table, especially because it's one of the most plug and play positions in the NFL nowadays with the complexity of the route trees that guys are being asked to run and the spring ball and the 7-on-7s. Wide receivers are as plug and play as they've ever been in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, I think wide receiver is still a big need, and it becomes a must-have if you lose either Sutton or Jeudy in the offseason. Then it becomes, I absolutely must have one of those guys. But, you might want to hang on to Jeudy next year, at least for the first half of the season, because he's playing for a contract. And the last time he was playing for a contract, deciding whether or not to give him $12 million or not, he finished the season pretty damn good. So I might say you're playing for your contract and then up his value up and move him at the deadline.
And the final point I wanted to make on the wide receiver thing, Scott, is that even though we've seen the Broncos go very heavy in their 12, 21, 12 heavy with the 6 offensive linemen on there, Broncos have the second highest rate of 6 offensive line plays so far this season behind the Browns. But Denver is still a primary 11 team. They ran most of their plays this last week out of 11 personnel. So
which is 11? Help me out.
3 wide receivers.
Yeah, because I was absolutely wrong on that. My seat of the pants analytics told me that you were running more 2 tight end sets, and that's why Marvin Mims wasn't getting the ball. No, he was out there. He was just kind of invisible.
Yeah, not taking the shots, but it's kind of like a good 3-point shooter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Creates space otherwise. You have to pay attention to him because everybody doesn't want to give up the explosive. So what does that mean? You're scheming out the explosive guys, which in theory should open things up for other guys. But if you're running that much 11 personnel, as the Broncos are, then you probably need 4 wide receivers that you trust right now. And on paper, the only one for sure is back is Marvin Mims. Do we trust Mims in the offense right now? No. Brandon Johnson, a fine number 4, but wide receivers on the table if you are keeping Wilson and going for it next year. If you're losing Wilson, you don't need to force wide receiver because there's going to be a good one available every year in the draft if you have to go that way. So I think that's one. It's a crossroad for if you keep Wilson or not.
Mike comes in. Appreciate you coming in with the support. Mike, good to see you this morning. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick. I live in Minnesota, so this one has been extra personal for Mike. Paul Allen is on the radio show right now talking about how the Broncos can't handle the zero blitz, talking trash. Love the show. Appreciate you. Is this the same? I only know one Paul Allen. Is this the Paul Allen?
I'm not sure.
I mean, Paul Allen for me was, Seattle Microsoft, right? That's Paul Allen.
It must be a different Paul Allen. That's what I thought too, but that can't be. That must be a radio personality in Minnesota named Paul Allen.
I don't know who Paul Allen is other than the Paul Allen. It's like saying Bill Gates is on the show talking about that. I'm like, what the hell's Bill Gates doing on this Minnesota airwaves talking about this? Can't handle the zero blitz. Well, they won the game on a zero blitz.
Yeah.
So that was a game-winning play. So if you want to go blitz, and blitz happy on this, so be it. I believe in Sean Payton to be able to make adjustments, and I believe in the Denver Broncos personnel to be able to handle the adjustments that Sean Payton wants to make. So if you want to come out zero blitz over and over and over again, good luck. This will be your 400-yard passing game, and we start moving up all those EPA, DVOA, APC, ECT numbers that start getting more, hey, we're taking more downfield shots.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see for sure with that zero blitz. The Broncos so far this season for quarterbacks who have at least, I believe the cutoff I had was 125 dropbacks. Wilson was the 3rd worst quarterback in the NFL in EPA per pass against the blitz. So he's taken a lot of sacks against the blitz and putting the ball. I think a few of the fumbles have been against the blitz as well. So it is concerning. The sample size is not huge, but luckily for the Broncos, you have a week to prepare for it. You do have Sean Payton. You get Greg Dulcich back. So if you want to go with a little heavy, you should, in theory, we should have Greg Dulcich back. In theory, you should have some options there in the pass game. Maybe Lucas Kroll, who flashed some despite not getting the ball, can be an option as well. He was the number 1 tight end in receiving yards in preseason this year.
He was open on sometimes. I just think you're not used to seeing him. And until you throw it to him, he's going to be ignored. He's going to be like, what was it? was it Jalen Virgil last year? It's like first time out on the field. He's got like 2 catches for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns, and then that was it.
Yep.
So maybe put that one in your back pocket for when you need a big play and say, big boy, it's coming to you. Because he was not being covered like a primary, secondary target when he was out there, and it's there for the taking.
Yeah. That's will be interesting to see for sure. But the zero blitz the one thing I wanted to bring is the Vikings have the far and away heaviest blitz rate of any defense in the NFL so far this season. They've been just, really getting after it thanks to Flores, who is one of the more blitz heavy coordinators in the NFL. But it is kind of weird as well because while Flores is also one of the heaviest zero blitz in the NFL guys, he's also one of the heaviest sending only 3 rusher guys in the NFL. Their rate
is all or nothing for this man.
It really is. And it's a lot of lined up at the line of scrimmage and either everybody's coming or everybody's dropping. The 8-man in coverage, they're doing it at about 18%, which is about 4.5 times more than the league average. So
that's risky. It's like 50-50. It's like if I guess right, you're toast, and I only need to guess right once on 3 downs.
But you're guessing a lot. And what happens when the quarterback is guessing? They're putting the ball in harm's way. And it's worked for Minnesota so far this season. After being one of the worst 5 defenses in the NFL last season, their EPA per play this season is 9th. And Scott, despite you're talking about the risk, the Minnesota Vikings defense in terms of giving up explosive plays so far this season, they're 3rd in the NFL. So it's not just a lot of times they will do the zero blitz, but they're also doing a lot of rushing with 2 deep safeties. So it's aggressive with the coverage, but still conservative in the back end. So there should be, in theory, intermediate passes and space for Yak to get done. You might not get the explosives there, but you can be efficient. But it really is a really crazy combination of coverages and tenants here that the Minnesota Vikings are running. They're an outlier for every defense in the NFL right now.
Let's look at their schedule and decide whether or not this should be normalized for higher or lower on explosive plays based on their, I've got an average defense and this is who I'm facing. Buccaneers, Eagles, Chargers, Panthers, Chiefs, Bears, 49ers, Packers, Falcons, Saints.
There's some explosive ones in there.
I'd say I'd say a shade on the lower side.
Yeah,
I would say on there. There's teams in there that, and again, I'm not looking. And thanks, Mike. Paul Allen is the Vikings home announcer. Well, he's paid by the Vikings in order to be a homer. That's his role. I get that one. Buccaneers, no. Eagles, yes. Chargers, I would still say yes. Panthers, no. Chiefs, I would say yes. Bears, I would say yes. 49ers, I would give a yes. Packers, I would say no. Falcons, hell no. Saints, no. So it's about average in there. So this, I think that your schedule is not really a factor in your explosive plays.
Yeah, it's certainly something to watch going forward. But they've been really good in that regard. Mike Edel coming in. Paul Allen is the Vikings home announcer. So interesting to see. And I think we do got to spend at least a couple minutes talking Vikings here. I mean, the Russell Wilson stuff is fascinating. So fun to talk about. And again, we still have a lot to see how it plays out, but Vikings are going to get after him. We didn't mention it all in this one. I think we have to. It's been the Josh Dobbs show there. Is it going to continue? The Vikings have been horrible running the football, but Josh Dobbs has been such an effective scrambler and really doing a good job getting the ball to players in space. Now he is a literal rocket scientist, so he's picked up that offense pretty quick. But I do want to give a shout out to 2 people on this Vikings team. Jordan Addison also deserves a shout out. He's not getting the talk that Puka Nacua is, but he might be one of the best rookie wide receivers in football so far. Was a little bit small, not a crazy athlete, but the guy just gets open. He did it at Pitt. He did it at USC. He's been good there. And also you have the guy I think we have to give a shout out to is Kevin O'Connell. What that offensive coordinator's done off of that Sean McVay tree via the Mike Shanahan tree, that offense is humming. They have a multitude of weapons. The offensive line is playing pretty good. They can't run the ball worth a lick, Scott. 27th in EPA per rush. But
that's including Dobbs breaking containment and getting big yards. Their most effective running play is Josh Dobbs running the ball, breaking containment. He did it too. I've seen him do it a couple times. Both the most times I've seen him do it have been escaping to his right
Mhm.
So Jonathan Cooper will be on point as the left edge for keeping containment on there. It's going to be a big part of this game.
Yeah. And it is a huge part. I would want to see the Broncos in this game approach the personnel from this game similar to what we saw versus the Bills. You're going to see a lot of light boxes, and if they run the ball, God bless them, it's probably not going to be very efficient. Why would you dictate personnel to that when the passing weapons are as good as they are? I've heard conversations the other way. Well, why not try to make them one-dimensional? Well, this team doesn't want to run the ball even. So why put the personnel out there where you have to do that? I think you stay light. If they have some efficient runs, that's fine. But Madison's been horrible for them. Cam Akers has injured now as well, I believe, for them. So I would play a lot of the 4-2-5s that we saw this week, maybe even some 3-1-6 kind of formations
Nick
out
Bonito
there.
in the spy again. It
Yep.
worked, and
Yep.
I think it works again. Keep your containment on the outside. DWI guys coming back and reminding us that Dalton Reisner is coming home as a starter. The Vikings fans adore Dalton Reisner. It's a little odd. It's a little strange, but he's there and he's super excitable and he's playing with a big smile on his face. And the big thing is they're 5-0 since he's been a starter. He hasn't been very good.
Mm-hmm.
But he's being connected to the success that the Vikings have had. And he was last week against the New Orleans Saints, he was the lowest graded player on offense on their entire team of 18 guys. He was DFL last. But by God, he ran downfield and pushed a pile and gave a crane kick afterwards. We love him. Yeah, he also gave up 4 pressures right up the gut. So Dalton Reisner is not a problem. Dalton Reisner is not a problem. He is who he's been, which is decent in pass protection, except when he's given up as many pressures as the entire offensive line combined. And he's not getting any push on the offensive line. Zach Allen can really, speaking of Allens, Zach Allen can eat his lunch. Him and DJ Jones should make some hay up the middle.
Yeah, you'd hope so. The Vikings are really good at the tackle spot in terms of pass protection, but the middle is a little bit light still. So we'll see. Keep contain the quarterback spies out there, and hopefully keep turning the ball over the way it has. This is going to be a fun game. The 2 hottest teams in football, and the Broncos once again on Sunday Night Football. I don't know if you saw, Scott, the NFL panel had 8 people on it, and for the 3rd week in a row, this panel, every single one of them besides Adam Rank picked against the Broncos.
Wow.
So the Chiefs, Adam Rank picked the Broncos over the Chiefs. Adam Rank with everybody else on that panel picking the Chiefs against the Bills. Adam Rank picked the Broncos. Everybody else picked the Bills, and now we have the Vikings. So we'll see if Adam can go 3 for 3 on that. But pretty interesting.
I thought it would. If you had asked me, I said it would have been split. The Broncos are favored in this game at home.
I've also heard that I think 75% of the money is coming in on the Vikings right now as well. So that line might actually push the other way. So yeah, it is going to be interesting. I don't. DUS Dave saying, didn't Nick pick against us? I did pick against the Broncos, against the Chiefs and the Bills. Damn right, I did. And I don't know, Scott. Should I keep picking against them because right now it seems to be some
I'm not
good
making
juju?
a pick. I'm not changing it. Like I said, this is an emotional attachment, not to this community. I'm no good at making picks, and I'm thinking more about jinxes than I am about rationalization on this.
Yeah.
I'd look at it. I picked the spread. I picked if you went double. I picked both of those last week, which was the Broncos. Take the Broncos and the points and the under, and I was 2 for 2 on that one. Let me look at this one. I'm not picking a winner on this, but this should be a pretty tight game.
Mm-hmm.
Over under is 42.5. That sounds about right. That's 22-18. 23-19 right in there. That sounds about right. Stay away from it. I would probably lean over on this one, but I'd stay away from this one. That's too close. And Mike asked, do you think they'll put a spy on Dobbs? Yes, I do. Absolutely. Nick mentioned it right out of the gate, and it reminded me. So thank you, Nick, about how you'll probably see a lot of the same defensive style and schemes that you saw last week against Denver or against Buffalo. And I agree, including Nick Bonito lining up inside and dropping in as a spy in coverage. And then let me see. And then Justin asks, Scott, have your feelings changed on Fabian Moreau? Yes, they have. I think he's playing very well in coverage. I think he's not overly physical and still a bit of a liability against the run and his tackling. But I think Vance Joseph is doing a very good job of scheming to these guys' strengths. Hey, coaching, including Nick Bonito, who is a liability on the edge and has found a way to get the most out of him and his athleticism by giving him a free role as a spy at times or strictly pass rushers. So Fabian Moreau, what he's doing in coverage by far outweighs his liability as a tackler and a physical type. And it will be even more important in this game against a team that isn't going to run the ball to the edges.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Fabian's been good. Scott, maybe it's just the too much scar tissue here. I feel like I watched him too much in Atlanta to fully buy in on him yet. I kept saying last week, maybe this is a game he finally turns into a pumpkin, but he's always been a really good athlete. And maybe Christian Parker has, dug in there. We keep talking about how great Christian Parker is. Maybe there is something there for Fabian Moreau, given the traits and tools.
Yeah, but my feelings at the beginning of the season were this guy has no business being on your roster. So they've absolutely changed. He's become a positive to what the Broncos are doing and a big part of the depth that have helped this defense improve of this winning streak. The three big additions to this defense that are a big key on the turnaround are two defensive backs and edge Baron Browning. When you look at Jaquan, Fabian in coverage, Jaquan all over the place. He is turned into a hell of a replacement for K1. And Baron Browning allows you to do his ability to set an edge, allows you to go lighter up front instead of needing three up there to not get completely gashed by the running game.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good call. Scott, we're at an hour and 6 minutes. Any final thoughts before we get out of here? The Vikings do feel a little scary. I need to text Chad after this if my text will go through. I'll probably pick the Broncos to win this one, but do you have a prediction? I know you said you're not going to predict, but any final thoughts?
No, I don't like the over-under. I think it's too close. I think it's about right. I would probably leave over. I think this is a pick-em of sorts. It's two hottest teams. The two hottest teams in football are clashing in Denver. That's fun.
Pretty awesome.
Nick, you've wanted meaningful football headed towards Thanksgiving. Here you go. This is another chance. I think you're waiting. You talk about turning into a pumpkin. How about Josh Dobbs? Josh Dobbs is getting the benefit of playing, of a surprise factor of sorts, of being able to freelance and use his athleticism. Now let a team prepare for him for a week that has a good defense. And let's see if you can turn him back into the guy that has made him a journeyman quarterback, expendable for a 7th round draft pick at the draft at the deadline. I'm not positive it was a 7th. I just kind of assumed it was a 7th. See if you can turn Josh Dobbs back into a pumpkin. That's what you're going for.
Yeah, without a doubt. It should be a lot of fun. And today was a lot of fun, too. I don't want to be the negative Nancy, recapping it as well. But is the Russell Wilson back? He's playing so much better than he was last season, and he is playing enough to win the football games. And what I love is that it does seem obvious that you have buy-in from Russell Wilson to what is being asked of him right now with Sean Payton. Even though it has devolved into the similar style that we saw in Seattle, it's not, the quick pass, shotgun, empty personnel, Tom Brady offense that I think Russell Wilson kind of wanted to be. But it's working well. You look like you have buy-in from the quarterback, and they are executing for the most part what is asked of them. And it's winning football games when it can be complementary to the defense and the special teams. But is he back? Given where the NFL is at right in today's games, I don't think he'll ever be back to what he was. And that's not entirely his fault. It's just where football is at in today's league.
I think he's back to the guy that you were trading for. I think he's back to, again, if this was the beginning of last year, you start this 3-0 against these teams, there isn't a question. There's praise about Russell Wilson and the trade that they made to get him. So, again, part of this, as I said at the beginning of the show, with Mike comes in, he says, Wilson's playing better, but not near that contract. Again, that is skewing. And I'm not saying you're wrong, Mike. But last year, the cost it took to get Russell Wilson, the cost it took to extend Russell Wilson, and then the absolute crap season of last year is going to bias our opinions of Russell Wilson. He's starting in the gutter instead of starting on a high point like it would have been in August of last season, where he was starting on a high. Everybody's excited. If you take those, if the first 3 games of his career were these last 3 games, there wouldn't be any question whether he was back. It would be Russell Wilson, the Denver Broncos won the trade. So is he back to what you were hoping, what you were trading for? Yeah, he is. He is. Yeah. Can he play better? Is he back to his absolute prime Russell Wilson? No, he's not. I don't think he'll ever be. Is he ever going to be worth $250 million? Probably not. Probably not. And he won't see $250 million anyway. But is he back to that he was worth what you gave up? Probably not. But is he back to a guy that you wanted to secure the position for this team and go win a bunch of football games with? Yeah, he can be. He's that guy again. He can be that guy.
Yeah. Will be a lot of fun to follow and interesting to see what happens, but should be a great week, and hopefully the Broncos can keep it up. And hey, let's go make it 4 in a row. Be great. Win this game, then what is it, Scott? Only need to win 5 of the next 7 then after that instead of 6 of the next 8. Things can happen. Mike might come in and say, which trade is worse, Wilson or Watson? Not even close. It is Watson. That's many reasons for that as well. But yeah, Wilson, you don't feel shame with having people with his jersey. I just feel a little gross with the Watson stuff.
It was it's the Watson trade, 100%.
With 100% guaranteed contract.
100%. That is $250 million, and not just the reported $250 million. No, that is $250 million, and it costs you more to get him. There was an extra first rounder thrown in there.
Yep.
There were 3 first round picks and change. It costs more, and you've gotten less.
Yep. And one of those firsts.
And let's talk about, you can call Russell Wilson corny all you want to. What Deshaun Watson is getting called is 100 zillion times worse.
Yeah. Not going to say anything negative for this one. Ethan coming in saying, great show, gents and Broncos country. Have a great weekend, everyone. Enjoy the game. Thanks, Ethan. Hope you're doing well. Always appreciate you coming in. And that's going to wrap it up, guys. I see Falling Sloth didn't think the show would still be going. Yeah, we got to go, Falling. We love you. Follow Scott on Twitter. Scott is at Scott Kennedy. I'm at Nick Kendell, MHH. Also follow us at Mile High Huddle and BFB_pod. Follow us on Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says here underneath, please subscribe over on YouTube to Mile High Huddle, like this specific show, and share it on your social media platforms. I see it on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook every once in a while from you folks, and it's always super nice to get the shout out there. So if you can do that, get more eyeballs on here. Not everybody's in a position to financially contribute to the show with super chats or superstars, but it takes 1 second to click the thumbs up. It takes 1 second to share it on your social media platforms. And if there was anything in here, Nick, you're being way too hard on Russell Wilson because of X, Y, Z, or you didn't consider this, hit me up on Twitter. We'll have a conversation. I've been wrong plenty of times. Once you've been married long enough, you have to be okay being wrong sometimes and hearing that you're wrong. So that is I have no issue with that. Always appreciate the conversation. It's academic, right? It's a fun way to talk about ball. So appreciate you guys. Scott, any final thoughts? We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Riding on out of here.
I have no thoughts at all. I am completely
zen.
I've given all of my thoughts to Broncos country, and probably some that you wish you hadn't heard.
Absolutely. Well, thanks everybody. Remember Manscaped, get that turkey leg ready, and have a great weekend. Continue to choose kindness and compassion. Go Broncos.